Clay Travis Buck Sexton show. We are joined now by Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. Been fighting a lot of battles with big tech. He's been on the program several different times. Appreciate you joining us, Senator. And you had some news that came out a little bit earlier today about the Attorney General position, and I saw you tweet about it. But for our audience out there, what have you decided as it pertains to potentially joining Trump's cabinet?
Well, first of all, thanks for the Rick Astley bumper music on the way in. I do appreciate that as a Gen Xer.
Yes.
That's near and dear to my heart. Yeah, it was an honor to be considered for the AG position, but I talked to the transition folks and had my name withdrawn from consideration for that really important role because I think it's important for me to serve up my term in the United States Senate. President Trump needs, actual, real America First fighters in the Senate who are going to move this agenda forward. I mean, he got a mandate on Tuesday, but we actually have to deliver on that, and I think that's the place for me to go do that. So I'll have a role with judges, picking some judges, and then also once we get back into Congress next year of trying to deliver here. So that's the right place for me. And again, it was an honor to be considered and mentioned, but this is the right thing, I think, right now.
Do you know who the AG might be? Do you give an endorsement as you step out? What do you think about that role and who might get it?
Well, it's an important one, and there's some names that are out there, and I don't want to get too far ahead of the president on any of that. But I'm always willing to sort of weigh in, and I do intend to be helpful between now and in January and then beyond. I mean, there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of important positions. AG is one of them. There's going to be a lot of judges to fill. That's another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about yet. He's going to have an opportunity again to sort of remake the federal judiciary and continue to put judges who interpret the law as it's written, not how they want it to be. The people that Joe Biden is picking here now are just activists, many of which have no experience at all, but they just want to deliver the results, and that's really not what it's for. So he's got a great opportunity, I think, here. He's going to put together an incredible cabinet. I know that.
What do you think about the possibility of some major appointments, Senator, happening in a recess that is essentially, pre-planned so that can happen without the intransigence and the obstruction that Trump faced in 2016 when he was being slowed down and prevented in ways that were bordering on just absurd? To prevent him from getting the people that he wanted in those key roles. I mean, would you agree that's the way forward, or do you think that with regular order, the Democrats will fall in line enough that it won't make that much of a difference, and there can be the speeches and the votes and all the rest of it to get through nominations?
I think the recess appointments, he's put that out there. I think it's a good idea. I think we should move forward on it. I also think that if we're pretty clear when we get up there that we've got the numbers, we've got the majority, and we're united, we can accomplish all these things. And I tell you, the Democrats are good at this when they get these sort of opportunities, and that's exactly what we have to do. I mean, and President Trump was really clear about what he wants to do. I mean, in addition to the appointments, but we're going to secure the border. We're going to be energy dominant. We're going to have an economy that works for real people and working people, and we're going to be respected around the world. All of those things can happen. And by the way, the 94 executive orders that Joe Biden undid when they got into office that, turned around all the successes we had at a 45-year low in illegal immigration when Trump left. I fully expect him coming in and doing that. The Remain in Mexico policy was incredibly effective. I fully anticipate that coming back on board. And then whatever we need to backfill legislatively to give him additional authorities, we can do that. And then on the permitting and on the leasing, a lot of these things can be done when you've got the White House. But I will tell you one thing to sort of look out for. A lot of those tax cuts that came into play in 2017 for middle-class families and small businesses, those all expire at the end of 2025. And so we can move those things, get those permanently extended, and here's the sort of in the weeds, we can do that by way of a process of reconciliation where you don't need 60 votes, you just need 51 votes in the Senate. And so I think we do that on tax reform. One of the things that I'm going to advocate for is regulatory reform as well, because there's a lot of budget savings, which is the key, that can come by way of regulatory reform that we ought to have in that bill. So I would anticipate we'll spend a lot of time on that too coming back.
We're talking to Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri. Big decision Wednesday as to who the Senate Majority Leader will be. I believe Wednesday is the vote. There are three known finalists out there, Thune, Cornyn, and Scott. Have you made your decision about how you will vote? How would you assess the horse race, so to speak, of the Wednesday decision on Senate Majority Leader?
It's hard to know. I'm not sure the three of them who I'm talking to all the time know either, actually, where the votes are all at. I think the input that you get from folks back home is all good. But I'm hearing all of them out, and I mean that sincerely. Like, I'm talking to people literally today. There's a candidate forum tomorrow. What is it, Monday? Tomorrow night when we get back up there. I think there's a lot of people who still haven't made their mind up. And here's what's important to me, and this is what I communicate, and I'm just, again, wanting to hear what the response is. I want an agenda that is reflective of what the American people want, what they voted for on Tuesday, right? I will tell you, my first 2 years up there, the biggest disappointment often is that the conversations in Washington are so detached from what people really talk about at home. Like, you know, when people say the most important thing that we need to do is send another $60 billion to Ukraine, literally nobody in Missouri has ever told me that. No, not one person has said, Eric, that's the most important thing you can do when you go up to Washington. But in our lunches, in just sort of that cocoon that people live in D.C., that is a lot of the conversation. So I want an agenda that's reflective of what real people want. And also, there's some reform. These omnibus bills at midnight where 2 or 3 people are writing the bill, people don't read them and you vote them, that has to end. Like, let's do individual appropriations bills. Let's have real amendments. I think that's what people think we do up there, but a lot of it's kabuki theater and very scripted, and that has to change. So those are the two things that I'm talking about, with the people who are running.
Do you think that there, Senator, is any appetite for well, I'll just say it, for deciding that the filibuster as a means to prevent Trump's agenda from being achieved may have to be something that, as Trump would say, you're going to look at?
Well, I think everything's sort of on the table. But I think one of the big concerns, of course, is that the Democrats have run on this specifically if the filibuster's going to pack the court, to pack the court, add states to the union, federalize elections, and grant amnesty to 15 million people. So I think everything can be on the table. We got to think about it. But also, if you did it, what would you do? What are the Democrats willing to do, right? So there's not, I don't think, any real discussion about that right now. But again, I think that moving forward, we have to be able to deliver, I think, for the American people.
Senator, right now, California has only counted about 72% of its overall ballots. You mentioned federal elections. We're fortunate that Trump won by such a substantial majority that the Electoral College wasn't thrown into question. But Nevada, Arizona, it's taken them forever to count. How do we go back to elections being decided in at least 24 hours? Because it certainly seems to a lot of us like we're going back in time and now count votes slower than we did in the 1800s.
Yeah, my hope, honestly, guys, is that this system, it doesn't help anybody. Okay, so just take yourself out of, our red and blue jerseys for a minute. Idea that you don't know for a week who won is insane. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It only furthers the belief in the distrust, right, in our system, and that just has to change. Now, I think that there are probably some things you can do on the federal level, but as Republicans, we sort of adopted this position that this is a state decision, right? Like how you run the elections, the states sort of decide these things. But what you're starting to see, what the Democrats want to do is have federal laws that don't allow you to have voter ID. Like those are the sorts of things that they want to do. I don't think, even in Democrat states, this is a good thing. So I think persuasion's a piece of it. I think photo ID, one of the things that we can do on a federal level, which we should do, which is the SAVE Act, which is to make sure that illegal immigrants aren't voting in our elections. For the people who tell you it's already illegal, we don't need to do anything. Well, it's also illegal to be here illegally, but people do it. And once you get a driver's license, which you can get as an illegal immigrant, all you got to do at the DMV is just say yes when they ask you, do you want to register to vote? No one really checks it after that unless there's something crazy that happens. So there are some things we should do. But this wasn't controversial, guys. Even just like a decade ago, there was the Carter-Baker Commission. They had 10 recommendations. Many of them were same day, make sure you have the election results come in that day, have voter ID. If you're going to have mail-in balloting, make sure you have signature verification. I think that maybe the Democrats, if they learned their lesson, these crazy positions they've taken have been rejected by the American people, and they come back a little bit, but we'll see.
We're talking to Senator Schmitt of Missouri. And one more for you, Senator. It seems like Chuck Schumer is playing some games here, not allowing Dave McCormick, who is clearly, by the vote of the people of Pennsylvania, going to be the next senator from that state. But he's not being invited to orientation by Schumer. What the heck is going on?
He's being a baby is what's going on. Just take the L, move on. The AP's called it. I and Mike Lee and some others have offered to escort Mr. McCormick to his orientation if that is necessary. All of this is just, well, you guys have to understand, and and your listeners probably to some degree, Chuck Schumer is a total control freak. Like, this guy consolidates power and wants to execute it. He can't handle the fact that he lost. One of his incumbents lost in a state like Pennsylvania, so he's just throwing kind of a temper tantrum. But Dave McCormick has every right to be there. The people of Pennsylvania deserve to have their senator understand where, like, the bathrooms are and get their letterhead together and start to get, phone lines operating for constituent issues. So these are the things that you start to do in that orientation because, I was there 2 years ago. There's a lot. I mean, it's a new gig. It's a new town. You got to hire staff, and we will make sure that he gets off to a good start. So I'm confident that he'll be there, and if you need somebody to help him get in the door, I'm happy to help.
Senator Schmitt, appreciate you, sir. Thanks for being with us.
All right, guys, take care.
One of the many takeaways from those recent election is the importance of fighting for what we believe in, never giving up, and doing what we can day to day. And that is so critical, even when it comes to the fight for life, my friends. It has to be a day-to-day thing. It's something that we try to have as many wins as we can get, and that means saving lives. That's why every day Preborn Ministries fight for unborn babies. Preborn's network of clinics are positioned in the highest abortion areas, making themselves available to mothers deciding between life and death for their child. Preborn welcomes these women with God's love and offers them a free ultrasound to introduce their baby and hear their beautiful heartbeat. This amazing encounter gives her baby a fighting chance, and most of the time, she will choose life. Would you join Preborn in the fight for life? One ultrasound is just $28. $140 would sponsor 5 ultrasounds. You can save a baby's life today with a tax-deductible donation to Preborn. To donate, please dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. All gifts are tax deductible, and Preborn has a 4-star charity rating, sponsored by Preborn.